Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. The European Union has acknowledged the Taliban's victory in Afghanistan, saying it is ready to begin talks with them. However, EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell insisted that dialogue does not mean formal recognition of the Taliban in the near future. He noted the dialogue is necessary to prevent a humanitarian crisis and return of a foreign terrorist presence in Afghanistan. The United States has found human remains in wheel well of a military plane that took off from the Kabul airport. In a statement, the U.S. Air Force said it has opened an investigation into the deaths after panicked Afghans swarmed the aircraft. Local media cited a Taliban commander as saying that at least 40 people died in the stampede and shooting at the airport since Monday. The UN nuclear watchdog says Iran has accelerated its enrichment of uranium to near weapons grade. However, Iran reiterated that its nuclear program is peaceful and said it had informed the agency about its enrichment activities. This comes just a day after the IAEA revealed that Iran made progress in its work on enriched uranium metal. Brazil has recorded over 1,100 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 37,000 infections overnight. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 66 more people lost their lives to the virus and over 3,900 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the coronavirus caseload has surpassed 208 million, while the death toll is over 4.38 million. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. The European Union has acknowledged the Taliban's victory in Afghanistan, saying it is ready to begin talks with them. However, the bloc insisted that dialogue does not imply formal recognition of the Taliban in the near future. More on this report. The political structure of Kabul government remains unclear. However, European Union says it is ready to start dialogue with the Taliban. Brussels says that the dialogue is necessary to prevent a humanitarian crisis and a return of foreign terrorists in Afghanistan. In a news conference, European Union's Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said that the bloc will also put conditions for its continual support. Meanwhile, the United States has completed a drawdown of embassy personnel from Kabul, and as the remaining diplomatic staff are assisting the evacuation of American citizens and Afghan allies, Washington hopes to retain a core diplomatic presence at the Kabul airport until at least the 31st of August, and longer if it is safe to do so. Earlier, the United States and the United Kingdom agreed to hold an online summit of G7 leaders over the situation in Afghanistan. The White House says President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Boris Johnson stressed the need for continued close coordination among allies. They also discussed the ways that the global community can provide further humanitarian assistance and support for the Afghans. Washington has frozen Afghan government's reserves held in the United States bank accounts, blocking the Taliban from accessing billions of dollars. For more on this, we have with us Mr. Salman Javed, Director General of Pak-Afghan Youth Forum. He's speaking to us from Islamabad. Now, Mr. Javed, thank you so much for your time. Now, the world powers have started acknowledging the Taliban's victory in Afghanistan, but they are not ready to recognize their future government. What is stopping them from recognizing the group?
Well, accepting the victory is one thing, but settling down is another. Taliban may have taken the throne of Kabul, but still they have to prove a lot. The trust deficit that was created with their actions back in the 90s, it will take some time, and most importantly, it will take a lot more than words, some concrete actions to be precise, to start a diplomatic negotiation with the regional and global powers. But having said that, Taliban did maneuver diplomatically. They visited Russia, they visited China, they talked to Iran, which should be termed as the most important and interesting one for their diplomatic activity. And they were also engaged with the United States of America during the Doha talks as well. Recently, yesterday, the UAE officials have already said that Taliban have won the war and they should be starting negotiating with them diplomatically. So Pakistan and China didn't say, or the regional stakeholders like Russian and Iranians, they didn't say that they won't accept the Taliban regime, but they only said that they will analyze and will declare their position along with other regional stakeholders once the Taliban will settle down the dust in Kabul. So, now, interestingly, all other embassies, they have shut down their operations in Kabul, except 4. One is Pakistan, the other is China, the third is Russia, and the fourth is Iran. This, for some, is a political statement by itself. So all is not lost at Kabul, or not all is not lost for the upcoming Taliban regime. But they have to prove themselves before other stakeholders or other regional or global stakeholders may start negotiating with them diplomatically.
All right. Now, Mr. Javed, the Taliban have pardoned all of their opponents and urged the women to join their government. Do you think the Taliban have changed, and whether their government will be run differently than the previous ones?
This is an interesting element because Taliban have changed their strategy very clearly. I don't know about the attitude, because the attitude, like I said before, it will be analyzed, it will be seen through their actions. But they clearly have changed their strategy. It's like that they already had this on the table. They started from north. We have seen it, engaged with the local mushers, the elders are over there, of the tribes situated there, and negotiated the peaceful surrender. This created a ripple effect. This also hit the morale of Ashraf Ghani's team, and they were clearly outmaneuvered by Taliban in this strategy. Perhaps people from Ashraf Ghani's regime were expecting some bloodbath from Taliban side, but so far, Taliban completely went off their previous track record. This is as refreshing as it seems, but it is also concerning, because we still have to watch very closely at how will Taliban conduct in near future, and how in the long run with the political and ideological opponents they will deal with them. With regards to women's rights, they have allowed them to come on the media. They have visited the health workers. They have called them to the recent press conference that held yesterday. But what will they do in the future? That needs to need to be seen. This can be termed, all these things that they have, all these steps that they have taken so far, this can be done as initial optics. But a long sustainable model to mitigate the situation and allow the women, girls, and professionals to work and go to schools and colleges and universities is something where everybody will be looking at. We have seen in the recent times as well the most engagement that they have with the females. They need to bring in the female scholars as well from their side, so that they may address the issue at large, not only at the metropolitans of Afghanistan, but also at the rural area of Afghanistan.
So, Mr. Javed, how do you see the relations between the Taliban government and Pakistan in the future?
Like I said before, that Pakistan will join the diplomatic bandwagon only when all other regional and global players will be satisfied and the dust will be somewhat settled down. Pakistan, however, is at the forefront of facilitating Afghans and its people, but it is also important to understand that states don't pursue their interests based on the appearance of ideology of the other party. They develop and interact with each other purely on the basis of national interest. Pakistan may see the prevailing and future threat matrix, especially with regards to TTP and ISIS, and the conduct of Afghan Taliban with them, and may also see how will Taliban negotiate with the political opponents of Afghanistan, and how will they mitigate the situation and bring them on board all the other ethnicities and political stakeholders for a shared power structure. After that, along with other stakeholders, Pakistan may join the diplomatic engagements with Afghanistan and the Taliban government in the future.
All right. Now, Mr. Javed, why did we see such chaotic scenes at the Kabul airport while there was no apparent threats from the Taliban as they conquered the Afghan capital without bloodshed?
Yeah, the tragedy is baffling because people falling from the sky. I mean, this is something very new, very, very tragic to witness. This gave a very negative picture as well, not only of Afghanistan, but of one people, of the United States of America, and of Taliban as well. This needs to be investigated first and foremost, and human rights activists should call on the world leaders and human rights forums to pursue a case against the pilot first, who flew without ensuring that there is no such risk involved for the passengers or people around it. I mean, how could he fly without, getting a clearance on these parameters? The chaos, however, can be termed again as an element of fear among the people, which they have for the Taliban, and rightly so, because Taliban's past record may have some kind of fear frenzy that have forced people to leave their country. So the responsibility of creating a bridge of trust is mainly the responsibility of Taliban, with their attitude and with their country, foremost. Then there are different reports that majority of the people at the airport were from those families or from those backgrounds who collaborated with US and allies during their time period over there and served them during their war on terror. So this also created a fear frenzy for them that Taliban may start a revenge justice against them. But then again, different elements gathered over there, but most threatening was the conduct of Americans at the base, because they started shooting straight at the people, killed almost 8 to 10 people there. People started falling from the sky. So the chaos was there, and it was escalated. It reached to the new heights on the media for the propaganda with the conduct of US and allied forces over there.
All right, Mr. Salman Javed, thank you so much for speaking to Indus News. The United States has found human remains in the wheel well of a military plane that took off from the Kabul airport. In a statement, the U.S. Air Force said it has opened an investigation into the deaths after panicked Afghans swarmed the aircraft. Local media cited a Taliban commander as saying that at least 40 people died in the stampede and shooting at the airport since Monday. Meanwhile, former Vice President Amrullah Saleh has claimed he is caretaker president of Afghanistan in Ashraf Ghani's absence. As the group consolidated power, the Taliban said their leader, Mullah Abdul Ghani brother, has returned to Afghanistan. He has been in Qatar from the last few months, leading talks with the United States and then Afghan peace negotiators. Pakistan says India has played the role of a spoiler in the Afghan peace process. This follows the Taliban's military takeover in Afghanistan and the subsequent chaos as thousands try to flee. More in this report by our correspondent Minahil Ahmed.
Pakistan has been the only country that consistently maintained that there is no military solution to the conflict in Afghanistan.
To come to some sort of a political settlement.
It facilitated 3 major milestones in the Afghan peace process, starting from the peace agreement between the US and the Taliban. Speaking exclusively to Indus News, Pakistan's National Security Advisor Dr. Moeed Yusuf said India spent a lot of money in Afghanistan to develop an anti-Pakistan clout.
First of all, there's no question they are a spoiler. They've been a spoiler since this began. Their strategy was essentially to use international military presence and under that cover to develop clout in Afghanistan, anti-Pakistan clout in Afghanistan. They poured tons of money into nefarious activities. If they were doing development and economic assistance, we would have no problem. But really, their focus has been to subvert Pakistan and destabilize Pakistan.
It was then followed by the initiation of the Afghan inter-talks and the agreement on rules and procedures. While many other countries supported the peace efforts, Foreign Office spokesperson Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry says India played the role of a spoiler.
The international community, the Afghans themselves, they need to be aware of the spoilers. And these spoilers can be within Afghanistan and outside Afghanistan also. And when we say outside Afghanistan, we do certainly see India as a spoiler. We have evidence that India has used the Afghan soil against Pakistan. We shared a dossier in which we provided solid evidence, irrefutable evidence, how India used a third country for terrorism inside Pakistan.
Following the Taliban takeover, India has closed all of its consulates, including the embassy in Kabul. It has also evacuated 140 Indians on a special military flight on Tuesday morning. Minahil Ahmed, Indus News, Islamabad.
Pakistan has reiterated it's committed to reconciliation for regional peace. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said nefarious designs of peace disruption must be foiled. In an address, Qureshi said all regional countries, especially Afghanistan, should work together for durable peace. The foreign minister linked peace in Afghanistan to peace in Pakistan and the whole South Asian region. He stressed the need for unity among Muslim nations in the current global scenario. Qureshi also warned that some mischievous elements may try to disrupt the country's peace during Muharram. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us.
Now, as all of us continue to watch what unfolds in Afghanistan,
every day that
Welcome back. The UN nuclear watchdog says Iran has accelerated its enrichment of uranium to near weapons grade. The weapons grade is around 90% purity. Iran has reiterated that its nuclear program is peaceful and said that it had informed the agency about its enrichment activities. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh said Iran's countermeasures will be reversible if the United States returns to the 2015 deal. This comes just a day after the IAEA revealed that Iran made progress in its work on enriched uranium metal. Brazil has recorded over 1,100 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 37,000 infections overnight. Globally, the coronavirus caseload has surpassed 208 million, while the death toll is over 4.38 million. More in this report. While the Delta variant has prompted restrictive measures, protests against lockdowns and vaccine rules have gained momentum. In Canada, demonstrations were gathered in Laval, Quebec, against the requirement of a vaccine passport to enter gyms. The United States has extended the face mask mandate for travelers through the 18th of January to address ongoing COVID-19 risks. While both the Washington, D.C. and New York moved to impose vaccine directives on healthcare workers. Meanwhile, the controversies on the COVID-19 origin studies keep stirring up. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said the politicization of origin tracing efforts is nothing more than a dirty trick by the United States.
Attempting to attack China by manipulating the virus origin tracing and politicizing it, in our opinion, is using dirty tricks to attack a noble country. China has contributed its scientific research results to the world to fight against the pandemic. While the country itself was a victim of the pandemic in the beginning, the investigation into the pandemic should go deeper instead of becoming a geopolitical manipulation by the US against China.
The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies said Southeast Asia need more help securing vaccines, as the region struggles to contain record infections and deaths driven by the Delta variant. New Zealand has recorded 2 new cases of coronavirus, taking the total number to 7 in the latest outbreak. Meanwhile, a new study says that young men could be at a higher risk of contracting COVID-19 than is currently recognized. In Pakistan, 66 more people have died of coronavirus over the past 24 hours. The health ministry says that the death toll has reached 24,639. It said the virus infected nearly 4,000 people in the past 24 hours. The positivity rate of overnight cases was recorded at 6.91%. The ministry said Pakistan's caseload has exceeded 1.1 million, of which more than 996,000 people have recovered. The number of active cases has topped 88,000, while over 4,800 are in critical condition. In India, the Assam-Mizoram border dispute has flared up once again after a crossfiring between the police of the northeastern states. Mizoram authorities allege that Assam police opened fire on 3 Mirzo civilians, injuring 1. They said that the 3 from Mizoram's Kola Sib district went to collect normal supply meat in Assam's Hailakandi. However, officials from Assam claim that firing began from the other side. Earlier on the 26th of July, 7 people, including 6 Assam policemen, were killed and over 50 others were injured in the border clashes. New Delhi's harsh anti-terror law faces intensified scrutiny from Indian courts and legal experts. The National Crime Records Bureau said over 1,900 people were arrested under the law in 2019 alone. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Act was introduced by the now opposition Congress Party in 2018. In 2019, the BJP government amended the law allowing authorities to categorize individuals as terrorists. It allows detentions without evidence, and people often spend months and years in jail without being found guilty. Now, some in India are calling for reform. Supreme Court's former Justice Madan Lokur says the provisions of the laws are quite vague and can be used indiscriminately to crush dissent. He said heavy costs should be imposed on the police for frivolous arrests. Supreme Court's former Justice Madan Lokur says the provisions of the laws are quite vague and can be used indiscriminately to crush dissent. He said the heavy costs should be imposed on the police for frivolous arrests. Last month, the death of rights activist Father Stan Swamy in judicial custody touched a nerve. The 84-year-old Jesuit priest had been jailed since 2020 under the same law alongside 15 other activists and academics. Authorities said he had links to Maoist rebels, but Swamy maintained that he was singled out for his work on caste injustice. In Lebanon, Hezbollah movement's leader Hassan Nasrallah says the United States-led NATO mission in Afghanistan has failed miserably. In a televised speech, Nasrallah said that the scenes of Kabul are completely identical to the scenes of Saigon in Vietnam. He said President Joe Biden withdrew forces because the United States could no longer afford the consequences of staying in Afghanistan. He said that the United States has come out of the country humiliated and defeated despite spending $1 trillion. He added that Washington is still ignorant and is repeating the same mistakes. The UN Health Agency says a second suspected case of infection by the deadly Ebola virus has been detected in the Ivory Coast. World Health Organization spokesperson Tariq Jasavarek said that the agency is very concerned about the virus's ability to spread in the country. He said there is one confirmed and one suspected case, with 9 identified contacts, with no deaths have been reported so far. Ebola is transmitted through close contact with bodily fluids, causing severe fever and, in the worst cases, unstoppable bleeding. The first case in Ivory Coast was confirmed in an 18-year-old boy from Guinea who traveled overland last week. The country has expanded its Ebola vaccination drive in the wake of its first positivity case in 25 years. Peru's Foreign Minister Hector Bejar has resigned after remarks he made about a rebel group sparked outrage. He said that he believed that the Shining Path group had emerged because of backing from the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. Local press published a video from November 2020 in which he also accused the Peruvian Navy of carrying out terrorism. The former guerrilla was criticized for not presenting any evidence to back up his comments. President Pedro Castillo says he has accepted Bejar's letter of irrevocable resignation. His departure marks the latest stumble in the rocky start for the government of leftist Castillo. In Haiti, the death toll from the Saturday powerful earthquake has risen to 1,941. Authorities say many people are still missing after the 7.2 magnitude quake hit the country's southwest. Authorities fear the number of casualties may rise as the search for victims and survivors under the rubble. Rescue work has been hindered by heavy rains amid the tropical storm Grace to the Caribbean nation. Hospitals struggle to tend to those injured, the official tally of which has risen to 9,915. Medics say that they are doing the best, but they are unable to cope with all the patients.
There are children who've had their skin sewn. Others have had surgery. There are children who had a limb put into an aid. There are children here whose medical situation is not related to the quake. For example, some of them have fever.
The United Nations says over 500,000 children are affected by the disaster and left with limited or no access to shelter, safe water, or food. Moving on, at least 47 migrants are feared to have died off the coast of Mauritania after a boat was found drifting with 7 survivors on board. An official of the United Nations Migration Agency said that the boat left the Laayoune region of Western Sahara on the 3rd of August. Nicholas Hochard added that the boat suffered an engine failure. It drifted for nearly 2 weeks before being spotted by Mauritanian Coast Guard. Hochard said that 54 people, including children, were aboard the start of the trip. In the United States, a rapidly expanding Caldor fire in California has injured 2 people and prompted evacuation orders for thousands. Officials say that the blaze has burnt over 30,000 acres of land so far. More about this and various other fires raging across the globe in this report. Fires driven by heat wave and accompanied by strong winds have wreaked havoc across the globe. In the United States, gas and electricity connections have been shut off to 51,000 customers in the state of California amid the surging wildfire. In Spain, winds have hindered the efforts of firefighters to battle the country's biggest blaze of the year. Officials say the fire has destroyed at least 37,000 acres of land as evacuations are underway. Moreover, firefighters in Greece are battling 2 fires on the outskirts of the capital, Athens. In Bolivia, raging fires turned the red sky in San Matías as firefighters struggle to tame fierce flames. Officials have declared 5 ravaged areas a disaster zone. Officials say almost 60,000 acres of forest has been burnt in the country so far this year. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, a blaze that had been burning for over 3 days is finally contained. It caused the evacuation of hundreds of families from 10 villages and burnt over 2,500 hectares of forest. China's Mars rover Zhurong has accomplished its exploration and detection tasks as planned. The country's National Space Administration says that the rover worked on the red planet's surface for 90 Martian days. Officials say so far the orbiter is in good condition as it is moving steadily ahead for further exploration. The 240-kilogram solar-powered rover has traveled 889 meters distance on the surface of Mars. The mission has so far collected over 420 gigabytes of data. This includes visuals of land features, analysis of soil samples, and readings of the Martian atmosphere. Researchers say that the mission has helped them learn more about the past and present of the desolate planet. The lander carrying the rover touched down in the northern hemisphere of Mars on the 15th of May. Shares in the Asia-Pacific have rebounded after Wall Street fell on weak retail sales. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand kept interest rates unchanged despite expectations of a hike. Mainland China's Shanghai Composite led the gains, rising close to 1%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng and South Korea's Kospi advanced nearly 0.75% each. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 rose more than 0.5%. However, Australia's ASX 200 shed marginally. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.